So many people who follow me have never realized that one of my biggest passion is the mindset of money. The reason I talk about it so much is because I find it to be incredibly fascinating how much power the mind can yield upon us, our behaviors, our emotions, and our decisions without us even realizing, and especially in the area of money. In this video, I wanted to share with you some of the common beliefs that hold people back from becoming financially successful. Now, beliefs, a lot of people don't really understand what a belief is, but a belief is simply a very deeply held opinion that you think is true. And when we assume that something is true, we don't even realize that we assume it's true. We don't question it. And it's kind of like putting a lens on your eyes, and then we see the world through that lens, not even realizing that we've got some lenses on, we've got the sunglasses on, not realizing that we're actually seeing the world not as the world is, but we're seeing it through our rose-colored glasses. And so a lot of people don't realize that the beliefs that they have around money and wealth can have a significant impact on their ability or inability to be able to create financial wealth. So let's talk about some of the common beliefs that I encounter frequently that people have that hold them back from becoming financially successful. Belief number one, that making money is going to make me rich. This is absolutely false. Making a lot of money doesn't make somebody rich. It's keeping and multiplying money that makes people rich. So you can be incredibly good in your occupation. You can have an incredibly high income. But if you don't have a plan on minimizing your tax, on maximizing your savings, and converting a good portion of those savings into high growth investments, you are not going to create wealth no matter how much money you make. In fact, study after study shows that majority of self-made millionaires and multimillionaires are not necessarily high income earners, but those who live under their means and they have a plan to save a good portion and invest a good portion of their income on a regular basis. And that is why they become wealthy. On the contrast, you'll see a lot of people who make very high incomes, but because they don't have a really good savings or investment plan, or they don't have a risk management plan, they don't actually end up creating wealth. The second belief that is held subconsciously and people aren't even aware that they've got this belief is that wealth is largely a consequence of luck. Now, if a person believes that wealth is largely a consequence of luck, guess what? They're not really going to develop the skill, are they? So if a person believes that wealth is largely a consequence of luck and not a consequence of skill, they're not really going to be motivated or disciplined enough to be able to develop that skill. And this is a belief that holds people back. This is a belief that almost persuades people to take shortcuts, to speculate. And this is why a lot of people don't become wealthy, because subconsciously they believe that those who are wealthy have largely made their wealth through luck. Certainly there are some people who become wealthy through luck, but the reality is, even if you've become wealthy through luck, you'll be in the small minority, but you can't grow your wealth. Even if you've inherited wealth, you can't grow your wealth with luck. You still need skill to be able to protect that wealth, to be able to preserve that wealth, and to be able to grow that wealth further. Skill is required. So people who believe that wealth is largely a consequence of luck and not so much a consequence of skill do not actually end up developing the skills that lead to wealth creation. And that's why a lot of them don't become wealthy. A third belief that is very prevalent with a lot of people who do not become financially successful is that large wealth is created through corruption, that you have to somehow be unethical, that you have to somehow cheat people. And there's a lot of stuff on social media where you see a lot of people being incredibly critical of billionaires. And so people don't really understand that wealth comes largely from character and not so much from corruption. Certainly there are bad people who have created wealth, but largely, and I have to say that, I've spent over 20 years speaking to people about money, and I can tell you now that the majority of people who are self-made millionaires and multimillionaires did not make their wealth through corruption. They made it through character. In fact, there is so much character required for wealth creation, because you cannot really create wealth over the long term and sustain that wealth without having character. And character, especially in regards to having discipline, especially in regards to having patience, especially in regards to having commitment and competence. All those things make up character. And so wealth creation is largely a consequence of character and not so much a consequence of corruption. And if people believe that it's a matter of corruption, then what they end up doing is they don't develop the character that is necessary to create wealth. By not building the character, they end up remaining poor, or they end up struggling. The fourth belief that also prevents people from becoming wealthy is that entrepreneurship and investing are risky compared to having a secure job. Maybe there was a time that this was true, but certainly it hasn't been true for the last 20 years. As we come out of the industrial age and we move towards the information age and the social age and the AI age, the reality is that there is less and less financial security in a 9-to-5 job. Companies are going to continue to outsource, they're going to continue to automate, and they're going to continue to downsize. So having a job in a corporation or in a small or medium business today is actually a really high risk compared to building an enterprise where you've got maybe multiple brands or multiple products and services, multiple markets. That is a lot less riskier. A lot of people also believe that investing is risky. There is only risk in investing if you don't understand what you're doing. That's how risk is increased, is when you try and undertake an activity where you don't really understand what you're doing. The more you understand something properly, the less risk there is. Risk is usually a case of perception, not a case of reality. And we generally perceive a much higher risk in things that we don't understand and we don't have an inclination towards understanding. Another belief that a lot of people have who don't really have wealth is that money is not that important, that peace is important and happiness is important. And I'll partially agree. Money is not important in things that money can't buy. But here is the interesting thing. Money can buy most things. It can buy good health. It can buy time for you to be able to spend, time with your family. It can buy education. It can buy experiences. It can even buy peace because, think about it. When you have money, you are able to make more decisions for your life. When you don't have money or you have less money, then other people make decisions for you. So money even results in freedom. So whilst money is not important in areas where money is not important, it is very important in areas where money is important, which ends up being majority of the areas. Now, when people believe that money is not important, it's not even on their radar. It's not even something that they think about. It's not something that they plan for. It's not something that they aim for. And so this is one of the beliefs that also ends up holding people back. Now, before people learn the principles and the strategies and the investment vehicles and the tactics of wealth creation, they have to first master their own psychology. If the mindset is designed for financial mediocrity or financial failure, then the strategies are not going to work, because in order for a principle or a strategy to work, people have to stick to it in the long term. And when you have a mindset that contradicts what you're trying to do, you are going to self-sabotage your own financial success by not sticking with it long enough. And this is not something that most people understand. And that's why the first question that people ask me is, where should I invest? And they don't realize that if they don't have the right psychology, they don't have the mindset for wealth creation, even if I tell them where to invest, their results are going to be temporary, because majority of the wealth is created through compounding. In order for people to benefit from compounding, they have to stick with the strategy for the long term. And anyone that has a mindset with any of the beliefs that I've just talked about is not going to stick with that strategy long term, and therefore will end up self-sabotaging their opportunities for wealth creation.